Hi again. So, yesterday we began to talk about how Jesus began to limit his ministry in an attempt to distance himself from the Jewish leaders. But that could only work for a period of time. Jesus continued to minister to the large crowds, and the Jewish leaders were there with a plan. You know, in 1824, America had an election. They chose between Andrew Jackson and John Quincy Adams for president of the United States after a long, uh, uh, hard fought campaign. Andrew Jackson actually won the popular vote, but he didn't win a majority of the Electoral College. In fact, there was no majority, and so the decision, as the Constitution stipulates, fell to the House of Representatives. Because largely of the support of the Speaker of the House, Henry Clay, John Quincy Adams was selected as president. Um, Jackson accepted his defeat. But when later John Quincy Adams named Henry Clay his Secretary of State, Jefferson began to say that the two had reached a bargain, that the two had cut a deal. And for the next 4 years, he popularized that gossip. Probably wasn't true. This was probably two political figures who saw each other as key figures in American history. And Adams simply selected Clay as his Secretary of State. But Jackson began to popularize the notion that the United States government was run by a small group of aristocrats who had no interest in the common man. By 1828, Jackson ran as the popular man's candidate. And in 1828, he was elected by a landslide. There was no longer any doubt America wanted Andrew Jackson to rule. Jackson found a way to become elected by starting a gossip campaign. This is similar to what the Jewish leaders did to Jesus. And so in Mark chapter 3, verse 20, Jesus entered a house, and again a crowd gathered so that he and his disciples weren't even able to eat. When his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him, for they said, "He's out of his mind." The teachers of the law came down from Jerusalem and said, "No, he's not out of his mind. He is possessed by Beelzebub, and by the prince of demons, he's driving out demons." Now, of course, what they had to say has no basis whatsoever in fact. But they have started a gossip campaign. Once they start it, that campaign takes a life of its own. In fact, we find this mentioned not only here, but in at least one other case in Scripture. Luke chapter 11, verse 15, Jesus heals a man who is mute by casting out a demon. And again, they say he casts out demon by Beelzebub. A different situation, but the same rumor. In fact, we find in the Jewish Talmud, in the book Sanhedrin, tractate 43a, it makes mention of a magician named Jesus who had 5 disciples and who was crucified on the eve of the Passover. It's a reference to Jesus, but they call him a magician, one who is possessed by the power of the devil. Now, Jesus deals with this gossip campaign by talking about how people can't really A kingdom can't be divided against itself. He makes a very logical argument, but the campaign has its effect. That is the effect of gossip. What about you today? Are you involved in any gossiping? Stop, stop. Gossip has an incredibly detrimental effect on the people that you gossip about. Um, Socrates actually had a three-step process that he followed anytime one of his students came to him with gossip. He said, first of all, is it true? If you don't absolutely know that it's true, don't say it. Second of all, is it good? If what you are saying is not good about the person, don't say it. And third, is it useful? If what you're saying is not useful, don't say it. Now, in the New Testament, Paul also talks about gossip. And when he talks about gossip, he simply says gossip is sin. Don't do it. Instead of gossip, speak the truth in love. Say only those things that edify the person that you're talking to and about whom you're speaking. Simply encourage you today. Don't gossip. Speak the truth in love. Edify. Tomorrow, we'll come back to looking at Mark chapter 3 and 4 and see how Jesus dealt with this gossip campaign.